Something very unexpected is happening inside Britain's fastest growing community. A political shift that no one, not even the experts, saw coming. The numbers are in, and they point to a movement breaking through barriers that were once thought impossible. Old loyalties are crumbling. New allegiances are forming. And for Nigel Farage, this might just be the breakthrough he's been waiting for. Stay with me, because this changes everything. Let's break it down, but first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. For years, Britain's Indian community has been one of Labour's most loyal voting blocs, solidly red, socially aspirational, and politically cautious. But now the tide is beginning to turn. According to new research from the 1928 Institute, a think tank founded by Oxford academics, support for Nigel Farage's Reform UK has tripled in just a single year among British Indians. That's right. Reform has gone from just 4% support to 13%, and it's happening right as the country heads into Diwali, a symbolic moment of light over darkness, and maybe a hint of political renewal too. The findings come from a large-scale study of over 2,000 British Indian voters. When compared with data from last year's election and earlier surveys, the trend is undeniable. Labour, once the natural home of the Indian vote, has dropped from 48% to 35%. The Conservatives, still struggling with the post-Sunak backlash, have fallen from 21% to 18%. Meanwhile, Reform UK has surged, outperforming every expectation. Even the Greens have climbed to 13%. For a party that just a few years ago captured less than 0.5% of the Indian vote, this is nothing short of remarkable. And the most interesting part? The shift isn't just statistical, it's ideological. For decades, British Indians, especially first-generation migrants, saw Labour as the party of fairness and tolerance. Back in the 1960s and 70s, when discrimination was rife, Labour seemed to stand up for immigrant families trying to build a better life. But over time, that loyalty has started to fracture. As the community has become more established, more middle class, more entrepreneurial, more integrated, their priorities have evolved. A growing sense of social conservatism and national pride has taken root, particularly among Hindu voters. Many now view Labour's identity politics and cultural progressivism as out of touch with their values. A key turning point came under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, when Labour voiced support for Kashmiri independence, a stance that deeply alienated many British Indians who identify with India's national unity. That moment planted a seed of distrust, and it's now blossoming into full political realignment. Nigel Farage has always been a polarising figure. His past comments on immigration, including criticism of government trade deals with India, weren't exactly designed to win over South Asian voters. But politics is about momentum, and Reform's messaging on national strength, fairness, and the failures of both Labour and the Tories has started resonating, even in communities where Farage was once seen as toxic. As one of the report's co-authors, Nikita Ved, put it, Reform UK is disrupting traditional voting patterns within the British Indian community. Economic frustrations, rising living costs, and anger at the political establishment are breaking down old loyalties. In short, many British Indians are no longer content to vote out of habit. They're looking for a party that reflects their growing ambitions and frustrations. And right now, that's giving Reform a rare opening. British Indians make up around 3% of the UK population, but they're highly concentrated in key swing constituencies, from Harrow and Leicester to parts of Birmingham and London suburbs. If even a small fraction of that vote shifts toward Reform, it could change the outcome of dozens of seats in the next election. For Labour, it's a warning shot. For the Conservatives, it's another sign of collapse. And for Reform, it's proof that their populist message is cutting through class and cultural lines. The data shows Indian voters are increasingly prioritising education, the economy, and law and order, issues where Farage's movement has positioned itself as the voice of common sense. Meanwhile, topics like equality and human rights, once dominant concerns, have dropped down the list. This isn't just a blip. It's a sign that Britain's most successful immigrant community is politically evolving faster than anyone predicted. When Reform UK begins to win over sections of the population that were once considered unreachable, it tells you something deeper is shifting in British politics. And with Labour's complacency growing and the Conservatives in freefall, Nigel Farage's reform might just be finding new allies in unexpected places. As Diwali celebrations light up the country this week, one thing's clear. A new political light is beginning to flicker, and Britain's old electoral map may never look the same again. In other news, the Conservatives are planning a last-ditch attempt to block the Chagos Island deal over fears China will use it to spy on Britain. Tory MPs plan to force a vote in the Commons in an attempt to call off the deal by holding up payments to Mauritius. Concerns over espionage from China have heightened as a high-profile case against two men accused of spying for Beijing collapsed after the Crown Prosecution Service dropped the charges. In a decision that has threatened to destabilise Downing Street, the CPS argued that the government's evidence no longer met the legal threshold for prosecution. The Conservative Party, which was in government when the case began, have accused Labour of being responsible for the collapse due to their relations with the communist nation. Jonathan Powell, a national security advisor and the architect of the Chagos deal, has been questioned over his decisions. The Chagos Islands deal was signed in May 2025 between the United Kingdom and Mauritius, which transfers sovereignty of the Chagos archipelago to Mauritius. Under the agreement, the UK will lease the largest island, Diego Garcia, for an initial 99 years to continue operating a joint UK-US military base, costing the British taxpayer as much as £47 billion. The base is said to have a significant impact on operations in the Middle East. Mauritius, which has close ties to China, will hand over the remote Indian Ocean archipelago, which has been British territory for 200 years. Dame Priti Patel, the shadow foreign secretary, said, "Our spineless prime minister is kowtowing to China. He's so desperate for the CCP's, Chinese Communist Party's approval, he's prepared to hand over his own country's sovereignty, not to mention £40 billion of taxpayers' cash, to an ally of Beijing." She told The Telegraph, as usual, he's running scared of scrutiny. He can't face being held to account over Chagos and China because he knows his arguments don't stand up. He thinks that by hiding behind the facade of international law, he can betray the British people and get away with it. But the Conservatives will always stand up for the national interest, and so we will resist Starmer's Chagos-China surrender bill every step of the way. Widespread concerns have built over fears that China could exploit its close economic ties with Mauritius to gain access to the archipelago. Diego Garcia is a submarine refueling and resupply station and a hub for satellite communications in the region, making the island a significant strategic base for the British Navy. If Beijing put a monitoring station on a neighbouring island, it would provide the Eastern Asian nation with access to British and US military activities. The deal heads into its final stages in the Commons this week, allowing a chance for opposition parties to suggest amendments to the bill. Such amendments could force MPs to vote on whether they send the payment to Mauritius every single year. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you have not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.